Tales from the streets.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Street Tales. I have Brandon with me, and he is a certified financial planner. We're going to talk about retirement, investment strategies, things like that. Um, Over 10 years in the industry, super privileged to have this time with you, brother. And I appreciate your time. And it's something that you don't really think about till the end of your career. As far as in law enforcement, I know you cover more than just law enforcement. So I'm not trying to pigeonhole you, but for my audience, nobody ever wants to talk about money. They don't, they think I've got a pension, so I'll be fine. All these thoughts. And once you start getting into it and get closer to retirement age, you start going, oh shit, maybe that's not enough. But I've been talking to you and working with you for, we'll say, some few months. But I appreciate you, and I value and find your philosophy and the thought process. Uh, like me, I know you do this all the time, but I've never had anybody like you talk about strategy the way that you do. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity, Tyler. Working with you has been awesome, and being able to share some perspective on how we approach planning, and hopefully it can help some folks. It's a privilege.
Awesome. Well, we'll kind of jump right into it. We'll spend a little time just do it for everybody that's new to the show. Just a little your background and your journey into financial planning, because I think it's something people maybe think about or have thought about, but there's not a bunch of you guys out there. Certified
Uh,
financial. It's a bitch of a
yeah,
from what
it's
I
a treacherous process, but it was actually a lot easier than the path I was headed down originally. So I went to
what?
college, so UConn for actuarial science. If you're familiar with actuarial, God bless you. If you're not familiar with actuarial, which probably should be most of you, if you've ever seen the movie Along Came Polly
Yes.
and Ben
I know
Stiller,
it. I know what you're talking about.
yep, Ben Stiller is an actuary. He's just an absolute super nerd and analyzes risk and does a lot of math.
Yes.
When he calculates how many hands have touched the bar peanuts, that's the way an actuary thinks.
There you go.
So that was my original path into like doing some type of career. And went through all of undergrad and did it. Did not land a single internship because I was terrible at it. And was really just looking for insurance opportunities when I first got out of college. And then I got into the financial planning space just by accident. Right. I interviewed with someone where I thought it was going to be an underwriting position. It was actually a position to, help people with things like life insurance and disability insurance and long-term care. And I started with that side of planning. So we call it risk management or insurance planning. And then it evolved into, getting my Series 7, then my 63, then getting my CFP at the age of 20, I think 7. And then that put me into an interesting demographic of, really young, but, decently educated, in a space that is riddled with a lot of folks that are over the age of 55, and, pretty well credentialed, but it wasn't as much of a priority when they were coming up in the field.
Fair. Very fair. Yeah. Are there any significant career milestones or maybe perspective shifts that occurred for you along that path?
I think being able to help people not only create good habits and systems of building wealth, but then getting to the other side and be able to meet people that need to learn how to use it, right? Everyone gets taught how to save, but very few people get taught how to spend. And I think it's really interesting that like one side is very mathematical and can almost be almost militant. And then the other side of it is just sometimes actually really emotional and just completely unexplored of like hitting the sell button, distributing monies, figuring out if you do have a pot of money, like what is even the most meaningful way for you to use it? Because most of my clients' lives have been spent as, husbands or fathers or mothers or daughters, right? And like always serving of other people. So it's very rare they've thought about what they want.
You know, yeah. Again, every time I talk to you, I get you put me in these deep thoughts. But I'll push on. The other part I just touch on is the meeting people, talking to people, because I have found in my career, 42 now, in my life, a lot of, let's say, financial people, not all certified plans, but there seems to be some sort of a disconnect between the social aspect, the ability to not bog down, the technical aspect of financial planning. You're very, you're very good at it. That bridging that gap, was that a skill set you just kind of found you had, or is it something you had?
I think naturally I'm really keen on going into the weeds if someone lets me. Um,
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
yeah, until my business coach, this guy named Nick, he's like, dude, simplicity breeds execution. He's like, the more that you can keep things simple and be able to help people actually take action and make change, that's making real impact. Just saying stuff to sound smart and then having the client so confused that they do nothing is not helpful. So I was like, all right, fair. And then he goes, the second part is storytelling, right? People might not remember, uh, they might not remember a technical part of the conversation, but they'll walk away with a story, right? And be able
100%.
to understand that and hopefully be able to internalize the concept and be able to, decide whether or not it makes sense for them.
Yeah, you know what? That's very true, because when you were working with us, there your questions didn't even the first questions weren't even about money or savings or anything. It was like, "What do you wanna do? What are your dreams, your goals, your aspirations?" It was like, oh, I think if I recall, I wasn't quite prepared. I was like, "I didn't think this where we were going with this," but it helped put it in perspective. And then you're like, "These are the things you can do to achieve that." And I very smartly done, and again, give you credit. It's like, why are you saving up this money? Why are you working so hard? What do you wanna do with it? Because I've actually done a lot of people.
That's awesome. No, I honestly appreciate that because that's really what I hope to accomplish with most people is to be able to have a different conversation instead of the same one they've had over and over and they feel like it's not productive. It comes up a lot with folks that are approaching retirement. It's really funny. They'll come and say, "Hey, can I retire?" And then the first question is, "Well, what do you want retirement to look like?"
Yeah, exactly.
And
I
I'm
don't think
just
people
like,
think about it. Yeah.
yeah, their version of retirement may look so different than other clients, and because of it, the amount of money that they might need, the way that they structure things to be able to be passed down to other folks or given to charity, it's so different. So I need to know more so like what do you actually want to do, and then I can figure out, hey, based off the balance sheet, your balance sheet might be exactly the same as someone else's, but based off your goals and objectives and the direction you want to go, the advice I'm going to give is totally different.
Yeah. No, bro, I love that. 100% correct. With that, so this question is kind of why complex study matters to long-term outcomes. My basis for that is heard horror stories from people that I know, acquaintances that retired, and they were like, "Good, I'm gonna live my life," and they buy the RV and the cabin on the lake and all this stuff. And next thing you know, in 3 to 5 years, well, shit, I've ran out of money. Now I need to, they have to get another job, like a second or something or career. And in my head, I'm like, how could that even happen? But the point, people don't, what is it? So based on that, why complex planning matters? What is that? Why planning matters for long-term health? Because I guess the basics of that was that people don't think about it till they are close to retirement, as opposed to planning on these things. I mean, my God, I wish I would have been doing this in the 20s and had these thought processes back then. Not. So the long-term thing, we'll leave out the complex.
Yeah, I think that it's just it's hard to not practice deferred gratification in like a meaningful way and then just
Yeah.
expect to have things set up and dandy, right? Um,
Mhm.
I find that, chosen hardship is one of the biggest privileges that you could have, right? Like saving money or exercising or like doing things that you're intentionally doing to make it just a little bit harder so that, you feel better when you actually have it accomplished. Um, so I think that like one half of it is just like getting into a practice of deferred gratification. But then the second part is just not having the right systems. Honestly, is that so much of it needs to be come a habit and be systematized. And if they just did it from the start, it'd be so much easier. Like the reason why their pension's so large is because the state takes so much money out of their paycheck on behalf of them forcibly, right? It's the same thing with
Right.
someone's, 457 or TSP or whatever the case may be. It's because of the fact that if you just set and forget it and just let time do its thing, does pretty remarkable stuff.
No, for sure. So switching gears a little bit, 'cause this is for the, it speaks to a wider audience than just first responders, but kind of the audience. But, there's a common over reliance on pensions, and you speak to that on why that could be a
Yeah, I mean, one is that
problem.
yeah, it may never get larger to the point where it's able to keep up with the lifestyle that you might want to live. Like some of them, and a lot of them do have inflationary riders, but it might not increase with the actual cost of living, or at least your cost of living, like the things that you really want to do. Secondly, is going to be your spouse or someone else, right? Is that not all pensions are 100% if you pass away, that it all goes to them. I have somebody who, I'm actually one of the biggest topics that they want to talk about was he's a special investigator for the United Postal System,
Mhm.
right? I feel like that was kind of similar to like the financial stuff you're looking into, right? On the IRS side. Yeah.
Yep.
So he does it for the US Postal System. And his pension option doesn't have 100% that could go to his wife. He only gets 50% or 25%. So now we have to play out the scenario. Well, what happens if he passes away? What happens to his wife and his daughter? Right? Is she going to be able to maintain the lifestyle that they had prior to? And a lot of times they just aren't able to. Right? So I think that, yeah, it's just a matter of it's honestly just usually too small to be able to keep up with a client's lifestyle. They just don't realize it until they aren't working their 9 to 5 and they have an extra, 50 hours of their life back. And they usually want to do some fun stuff with it.
Yeah, and again, I know you have a broad, clientele, client base, and again, I'm not asking to get to the weeds or not, but there's differences in local PD or local first responder, how that's set up. The state's a little different, federal system, postal, they're kind of on a different retirements. There's always little niches.
Nuances.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Thank you, nuances on how things are done, but a lot of people, self-included, meaning you, I never even looked into it. I was like, "Ah, I should be fine because everybody says I should be fine." And nobody ever reads the millions of pages of stuff. You just sign, "Yep, I'm good, I'm good, I'm good." But the point, my biggest fear, and I've expressed that to you, is something happens. I want my wife and my children to be okay as far as that is to the best of my ability. And
yeah.
knowing those things, you gotta be able to talk to somebody like this.
For sure, and, it's also, hey, if you're gonna, bust your ass on a career for 20 years on arguably some of the hardest careers that you're gonna come across, right? From a mental perspective, physical perspective, the amount of time that you guys work is insane, right? The long hours, especially at night, is just gonna destroy your sleep schedule. Usually has some effect on health. So, like, when you get to the other side of it, you really wanna be able to enjoy the time, and just make sure that you have enough money stocked away to actually do it.
We're gonna go off script a little bit because you're this is how it goes sometimes, so forgive me.
Yeah.
But in talking with you, things again, once again, things I just think about after the fact, but, long-term care, short-term care, cancer policies, I still basically supplement opioids. I was trying to think back on my 15 years of law enforcement. Nobody ever talked to me about this at all, and just kind of are led to assume that you'll be fine and the agency will help you. That is not always the case. How do you broach that with somebody is in the first responder field or government field? How do you broach that? They're just like, "Oh, it's just more money. It's just another whatever."
Yeah,
That was a hard one. I
insurance is
know.
a tough conversation, man. It's the thing that no one ever wants until they want it, right? And then by
Mhm.
the
Well,
time
they
that they
need it,
do
yeah.
want it, it's usually too late. Um, I don't know, man. I think I just try to think about it as if it was me, right? And try to use stories to be able to portray what could possibly happen, and like client stories where they called the play in advance, right? They got something in place and something happened and just what it did for that family. I had a client who, for the first time, in my opinion, passed away before they were supposed to. There's a 47-year-old dad that left a son who's 5 and, a wife who's only 42. And insurance was an exciting topic that we talked about, a few years ago, but it was just something preemptively we got in place knowing that, they wanted to start a family. And thank God we did, because she ended up, having a brain tumor, right, and then passing away a couple of years after his kid was born. So, it's just tough. So I don't really have a good answer, honestly. I think that the right people will, be open to the conversation and hopefully make a good decision. And then there's a ton of other folks where it's just the right time, right place, and they have to be ready for it. But dude, it's hard to actually get coverage for folks that are in your like the first responder space too. Like most insurance companies will not insure any of them, right? So like there are a few companies, but it's the premiums are not sexy. I'll say that they are tough. Um,
Yeah.
so I think it attracts different people. I'll just say that.
No, fair enough. It just real quick, just because it's my own I'm okay talking about my own personal stuff.
Sure.
But like life insurance, it's something every cop or law enforcement professional get. And talking to you, I was like, here's what I got. Is it good? And I didn't realize it. My work. I'm not knocking anybody. I'm not giving advice to anybody at all. But you were like, hey, listen, you're covered, but I don't know if you realize this. Your premiums are going to go up every 5 years, and it's just going to keep getting more and more and more expensive. Here are some other options for you. Now you still got to go through the whole medical and blood test. That's what I'm saying. Not getting into the weeds, but I didn't even know that. Shame on me. But it made me think I need to do something else. And I could saving money long run.
Yeah, it's a pooled product in the sense that they're pooling the risk with a bunch of other people. So they have a massive, like they cast a huge net over a bunch of people. So that's how they kind of spread out the risk, but they have to spread it out, not just universally, but based off of different ages. So that's why most group policies, universally, all the premiums are going to increase every 5 years.
All right, back to the program.
Yeah.
Sorry. Um, lack of a clear investment strategy. What does that kind of mean to you? How could maybe help somebody like myself who's ignorant on?
I think a lot of times people lack an investment strategy because they actually just haven't thought about what they're saving towards. Right? Like, some people are just like, "I wanna start investing," and then I just go, "Why? Like, what for?" And they go, "I don't know, I just wanna make more money." And I'm like, "Well, I can't that's not enough, right? Because if you say I want more money, but I need it in 3 years, I'm gonna put that to work totally different than, money I'm gonna put away for, 15 plus years." But in the short term, right, I think that, you know, uh, being more conservative than you'd like to be is kind of a necessary evil, because making more money in the short term but not having it when you actually need it isn't accomplishing the goal. And that is the risk of volatility. That's the risk of putting it to work and then having the market drop. And, the average market takes 2 years to recover. So if the goal is that important to you, I'm not taking the risk of putting it into anything that could go down. Right. But if we have 10 plus years, right, and we can weather that storm together and kind of ride out the turbulence, I'm all aboard, because I think that risk gets talked about way too often in investments, in the sense that someone can lose money permanently. I don't really believe that in a well structured, diversified like investment, meaning like, ETFs, indexes, things that are broad based and not just like one singular company. Um, the likelihood of 500 companies going out of business at the same time is very unlikely. So the likelihood of that particular investment that is buying all 500 of those at the same time going to zero is, in my opinion, also zero. Right. So knowing that those 500 will eventually do well, because I don't know about you, but I feel like every other CEO in America just wants to make more money. And that's kind of like what drives everything forward, is like, as long as there's someone crazy enough to want to like go to Mars and build electric cars and stuff like that, like we're always going to have people to like, drive the market forward. Um, the accounts will go up. It's just that they're going to take some really, really hard tumbles along the ride. And we just have to be able to withstand them and get to the other side of it and just make sure that we're not making bad decisions when things are scary.
This is not a political show, so it's not a political statement, but the way you just phrased that, there's a lot of mixed feelings. CEO, large firm, they're making too much money, all that. I think the point, the better they do and the better their company does, the better a large swath of Americans' retirements will do. Is that a safe
Yeah.
way to say it? We try to avoid any political.
No, I
That's not the intent.
I mean, I think someone being like an ultra billionaire is just a little bit of a ridiculous idea because I think that at that point it's just kind of like an ego play. Like, who possibly needs that much money?
Yeah,
Um, but someone like Warren Buffett, who has apparently pledged like a majority of his assets to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation after, and a lot of it's going to be donated. That's actually pretty cool.
yeah,
But folks that have created companies like uh, Amazon, right? That is literally changed the entire way that we shop and get stuff. That person might deserve to be a billionaire and employ hundreds of thousands, at least thousands of people that all get paid ridiculous salaries and make up a good portion of the country, right? So, like, are they
yeah.
spreading all of the wealth? Probably not. They're probably keeping a good amount of it, but they're also giving a lot of people a huge opportunity to also make money and participate. So I think that without them, that we don't really have a good, strong economy that can move forward, unfortunately.
It's a good way to say that. I appreciate that. And I was actually just having this conversation a couple days ago. Like, I would love to be the place where I could donate like $1 million to charity. With it's like I would feel weird donating $1 million to drive off in a Honda, bro. Like, there's got to be a balance. You know what I mean? To
Yeah.
that point.
Well, that's
uh,
that's that's my problem with legacy wealth to an extent. Is like people are like, oh, I want to, donate, $1 trillion at death. A part of me is just like, I could guarantee if you gave them the money now instead, they could find so many ways to create impact. And the cool part is you'll actually be alive to see it instead of like giving them even more later and you don't get to see or experience any of that impact or benefit. I don't know, maybe that's the selfish part of me, right? That they get a smaller number, but I get to see it and enjoy it.
yeah,
But the thought or idea of just having a ton of money set aside for someone else that you're not going to be able to benefit from and other people can. I guess if it's for your family, I don't have kids yet. So that might be a sense of like altruism I don't understand yet. But um, yeah, I think I just wanna even with my kids, I don't wanna see them enjoy it, right, and try to be alive for as much of it.
uh, it's good to kind of bounce around a little bit because we talked about something that I was aware of. Now we're kind of a little bit, but the concept of automation is in your world, and again, I'm speaking ignorantly as a civilian, shall we say, this topic, but through conversations we've had and just my own research, there's a lot of money managers, or wealth planners, whatever they use these systems that are automated to invest your money at whatever times. But what I like, not saying that you don't, I'm letting you speak for yourself, but you have a hands-on, you check in, I think 3 or 4 times a year. I want to talk to you, check in with you as often as possible. If you don't want us to anymore. I didn't even realize that's a thing in the industry. You elaborate on my poorly asked question.
So you mean
It's a lot
trust
of
me.
set it, and then but you are like, "I wanna meet with you. I wanna talk to you." It's not just, "Yeah, Brandon's
Yeah,
my
yeah.
guy. I'll talk to him in 15 years, 20 years, and hopefully it's good." You're like, "No, that's not how we do it. We're gonna talk to you, 3, 4 times a year, or actually as often as you want."
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, eventually you're gonna get tired of talking to me, dude. You're not gonna talk to me 3 or 4 times a year. There's
I don't know yet, man. We'll see.
a
We'll
lot of
see.
clients have
Challenge
gotten down to about like 2 or 3, but some years they're really boring. It's the same thing and the same systems because the goals and objectives haven't changed yet. Right? There hasn't been
Yeah,
enough of a life shift to really call for a huge monumental shift in their approach. But when that time comes, there might be years where I talk to someone like 10 times, right? Just because they have a bunch of stuff going on and we have to make sure that everything's airtight for like the specific goal that's coming up in, a year or a month. Right, like when someone's about to retire, we're talking to them probably at least like 4 or 5 times a year, starting, anywhere between 3 to 4 years prior. right? Just to make sure that the table is absolutely set and they're, perfectly at peace of mind with the decision that they're about to make, which is going to be to stop working uh, forever and never have to go back, right?
Exactly.
But yeah,
Exactly.
I think look, by the way, systems, we have a ton of things systematized. I love systems. I want things to be as automated as humanly possible. I think the biggest thing is I just want to stay present with my clients and just make sure that we're taking them off the treadmill of life, right? Just for a few minutes every year, because otherwise, most people shut their head down and are doing their thing. And I think that just having some time for reflection and being able to see where they're headed and whether or not they should shift anything is a big part of the value add.
I agree. I'm biased, but I agree. Um, in that concept, the treadmill of life, I want to shift a little bit to like, um, and this is just your opinion, your advice, your thoughts, your strategies. Emergency fund basics, like what should people be thinking?
So if you're single, you could be a little bit leaner sometimes, right?
Mhm.
At least it's my opinion in a sense, is that you can probably make some pretty significant lifestyle adjustments if you needed to on your own. I think that when you're together, it should be a little bit bigger just because I feel like you have more responsibility to take care of each other. So typical is going to be 3 to 6 months, right? Really depends on your risk tolerance and what kind of expenses you have. If you're renting, probably doesn't need to be 6 to 8 months. It could be a little bit lower because you're not going to have those random house projects that pop up. But I'd say as an average, it should be 3 to 6 months of expenses, of like a regular month, right? Not like like a really really lean month where you're eating ramen every day, but like a normal, just hey, if my mortgage or rent is X, this is my average credit card statement. And here's how much I have taken out for other random things. Using that number and trying to do a multiple of it, because I think emergency funds are mostly for one, God forbid you lose your job. Two, if you get sick or injured and can't qualify for some type of like short-term disability, and hopefully long-term would kick in at some point. And then lastly, just for that random event that you don't have insurance for, like the car fender bender that you don't want to claim because if you claim, they're gonna raise your premiums like crazy.
Yeah,
So you pay
exactly.
2 grand out of pocket, right, and hope that they don't file it. Or the random vacation or something like that that pops up that might have been an opportunity that came out of the blue and you don't want to say no to it.
Uh, I want to ask you this about debt strategy and where this question comes from is like rich dad, poor dad.
Sure.
He's on he has his own radio show. He does a lot of stuff, but he's famously like, "Oh, I'm $4 billion in debt," but he leverages that. But do you have any for those of us who are not comfortable being $4 billion in debt? Do you have any ideas or opinions on debt strategy?
Uh,
Just
I
in case,
th- no, I think that debt can be really healthy. Um, I'm trying to caveat this. So I have a car loan that I got in 2022 that every time I pay it, I'm like, I just want you gone. Right. And then I always remind myself I'm paying 3% in interest. And my accounts on average have been upwards of, 10 for the last since 2022. Right. So I'm just like, would I really want to put money here and lock in a guaranteed 3% that I'm saving versus having the opportunity to make more knowing that I don't need these monies right now anyways, right? So that's where I think that debt could be great. Where debt could be really troublesome is credit card debt is the worst thing ever, right? It's, upwards of 20%, and there's just nothing that can consistently earn you 20%. So that one's immediately nipped in the butt. And then I think the rest of it is kind of just up to your personal, I guess, preference in a sense. Like, I think that the 4 to 5% interest rates, it's debatable as to whether or not you keep it and try to make the money work for you, or you pay down the debt. Anything over like 5%, I'm trying to pay that thing down fast. Right, I want that thing off of my plate and, just, yeah, hopefully being able to lock in that rate and then be able to, use my cash flow afterwards to try to make more, but really depends on the person.
fair enough. Appreciate Can you expound on risk tolerance or risk capacity?
I actually
And
don't
it's okay if
know
you can't. That's all right, bro. You don't have to.
if I know the
Yeah.
difference. I think risk tolerance would be how much
How much
risk you're willing to take. And then capacity would be, I guess, how much you could absorb if it actually happens. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Well,
Um,
I came from crypto, just so you know, because like everyone that was hot and heavy on crypto and it's super volatile. It's outrageous. Once again, not giving anyone financial advice from Tyler Martin's mouth, but it's fun to play around with. And you're like, oh my God, I hope it goes up 100,000%. I get it. But most of the time it goes down, you know, 100, 2, 3, 4, 500%. And then, it's super volatile. But people, oh, in person, dump large sums of money. Like, oh, this is a sure thing kind of the idea. And they lost their ass. You know what I mean? But I've also known others who were able to buy a house. So it's kind of that play around thing.
I
That's
think
what
the hard I think the hard part with like people that I've spoken to that have invested in things like crypto though is that some of them do genuinely believe it's going to be the future of the world, that fiat currencies and like the actual common dollar may go away at some point in the same way that we stop trading people like gold and silver to exchange for goods. Right. So some people are buying it with the sole and intent of like it's almost like buying a discounted dollar, right? But like decades earlier, right, that they could use to actually buy and accumulate and use it as actual currency. And then there are others that are genuinely just buying it as like a gamble, right?
Yeah.
And I think that part is once again, those people I don't think are investing, I think they're gambling. Right. There's no proven track record of where this dollar is going to go and be able to actually make a plan around it. It's a complete crapshoot. Right. So I think that's the biggest difference is like I can look at certain things that I'm putting my clients' money into and they have a track record of, over 5 decades. Meanwhile, this thing, I have no reference point. Right. So genuinely, your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah.
So,
Fair.
yeah,
Thank you. See, yeah. So I clarified, I was trying to be a little maybe too on the nose.
it's all good.
Just real quick, just because again, in my conversations with you, common misunderstandings or maybe lack of knowledge on fees and behavioral mistakes that people make when investing or letting someone manage their money. That kind of like the behind the scenes where it's like, oh, we charge up 1% to manage the money. Well, that 1% is added on to the 2, 3, whatever. I'm just saying 2, 3% from whatever other funds you're also invested in. Could you speak on
Yeah, there are a lot of things that you can put your money into and invest into that have significantly higher embedded fees that never show up on the statement. Right. So it's going to get a little bit technical, but hear me out. Is
all
that
right, go.
uh, so imagine that an advisor charges you a 1% advisory fee, which is not uncommon, right? So that 1% would get drawn from the account. But what they might not tell you is that the actual mutual fund or, private equity fund or whatever fund that they may be purchasing may also then charge another 2% fee. So then there's a 3% total fee on the actual like money that you're investing, but the 2% you never actually see. That's the crazy part. You don't get it seen drawn out of your account. The way that they do it is instead of buying a share at 100, they're buying a share at 102. So they're automatically buying it at a premium so that the actual investment needs to go up to 102 to make your money back. Otherwise, if it stays at 100, you're technically at a permanent 2% loss, right? So that's the
Yes.
crazy part about how an expense ratio works is it's not actually drawing the money out necessarily. They're just buying the actual investment at a more expensive price. And that's how they're getting away with it. So being able to look at that and analyze it, I think is important. But thankfully, ETFs have come out and they are significantly more low cost. They are, um, for most people, the right move. There might be at times where active management, like in the fixed income or bond space, it might be actually helpful to hire somebody like a portfolio manager. But in most like stock based investments, just doing a really nice, easy, low cost ETF is mostly the move.
Dude, when we had that conversation with you, very enlightening. Once again, just your ability to articulate that. And again, things that unless you're in the industry and the business, I don't know that you would know that we would know, right?
Yeah, for anyone that wanted to like understand how to find it too, because I've had clients be like, dude, where are you finding this? Like, how do you actually learn what that is? You
Yeah.
just type in the letters that are the actual security. It's called a ticker symbol. So TICKER, like ticker symbol. And then you just type in the actual, it's either usually a 3-character or 5-character ticker symbol, and then just type in that symbol plus expense ratio, and then you could typically find out how much the company itself is actually charging you, because the advisory fee is the fee they're actually paying someone like me to spend time with you, run updated like plans and analysis and models. I would say do some financial therapy, right, and stuff like that. And then education, obviously. And then the second part is going to be the actual investment company, like where you're buying the investment from. They need to make money too and keep the lights on. Right. So like that's why companies like Vanguard have become so prevalent, is because they're doing it in a really low cost way, but they're doing it at massive volumes. Right. And then there are other companies that are still traditional asset managers that are hiring people to try to beat the market. But it's just become way too hard of a game to consistently do.
Fair enough. Now, kind of in your bread and butter wheelhouse, at least when talking to me, how I felt, tax advantage or taxable,
Yes.
like the Roth.
So for sure. I think this is really big for public service workers, right? And people that are first responders, is that uh deferring taxes to a later point in time is probably not going to be the move for you, specifically because your pension is going to be such a large portion of your retirement plan. If you have the ability to pay tax on the seed and avoid paying tax on the harvest, that makes a lot more sense. So that when you actually start taking money out, it's not, guaranteed pension taxable plus even more taxable income that pushes you into higher brackets. Now it's you pay tax on this really small portion today, and it balloons into this massive harvest that all of it gets received tax free, and it doesn't increase your income above the pension. That's something that a lot of people don't consider until they get there. And then it's usually really hard to get it from pre-tax to after tax without having to pay a lot upfront. And then there's also something weird about paying tax out of your paycheck versus your asset. When you pay it out of your asset, you're actually seeing your account value go down. When you're doing it out of your paycheck, it just kind of happens, if I'm being totally honest. Like, I don't know,
Yeah.
people just don't realize it or feel it as like physically and viscerally as they do out of their investment account.
Speaking from personal experience, I can agree, and because I've switched different agencies, things like that. And if you take from a retirement account before you're supposed to, it's like, oh, I had whatever 50 grand in there, and then they take 30 something percent out. You're like, oh my god, you feel that. But to your point, if you would have done it in a way that they taxed the small little incremental deposits in there, you wouldn't have got hit so hard out when you had to move, whatever. Again, I'm not trying to speak eloquently on this topic from
No, I
personal.
think it once again, it comes down to like systems and behaviors. Like someone would much rather pay $1,000 each month in taxes than 12,000 once. Still the same exact number. It's just the experience of it's just totally different, right? Like
Yeah.
one thing that's really weird about credit cards is that I find the more lines of credit you have, it's way easier to spend, because paying off a $1,000 statement balance on 5 cards feels a lot easier than paying one statement balance of 5,000 on one card,
Yes.
right? So
Yeah.
I see that happen all the time, and it makes it really difficult to also track expenses. So if people want to get tight on budgeting and stuff like that, my recommendations, typically something called the one card system, is that you literally sacrifice all other cool benefits and perks that any other card could have, but just use a single card for every single expense that you possibly can. There are going to be some that they won't allow you to, but really try your best to just use one card and get a really good feel for what that average statement balance is throughout like an entire 6 months or a year. And you'll have a pretty solid average as to what your lifestyle cost is.
But Brandon, I can get 10% off my purchase now if I open the credit card at every single retail store and restaurant, you know, improvement store that I mean, my God, I could have 100 credit cards if I said yes to all these offers that they always offer. It's
Yep.
outrageous.
Yeah. Sign on bonuses are a legit They're a really shiny object for a lot of people. Sign-on bonuses they can be dangerous.
For sure. For sure. Oh my god. All right. So Roth versus traditional decision framework, and I don't. Hopefully, that's a little different than what we just talked about. I'm geared towards more about financial group and your methodology or philosophy. What does that mean?
Um, I think that there's ways to make money where you can buy investments that will hopefully make more than what you're currently doing. For example, like if someone's sitting, in $200,000 in cash because they don't know what else to do with the money and they're afraid to put it to work, and they're not going to put it to work unless if they work with someone like us. Um, I think that that's one way to make money is actually invest and earn. I think the other way to make money is not just make more, but try to figure out ways to keep more. The only way to keep more is to reduce taxes and figure out how to be more tax strategic. Um, but sometimes it has to be really short-sighted. So that's using things like the HSA, where it's, tax deductible, it grows tax-free, and you could use it tax-free. So it's the only account that's like a triple threat, which is awesome, where it's literally money that goes from a paycheck into an account that potentially never gets taxed while it grows. And then if you use it for healthcare costs, also never gets taxed. And then people are like, well, what if I don't have a lot of healthcare costs late in life? Trust me, you will, right? At some point, right?
Yeah.
And then
True.
yeah, and then if you don't, what's even cooler is that if you're really organized on your health cost expenses, you could potentially back claim costs, right? Like in perpetuity, which is insane. Which is, let's say you have like 100 grand inside of an HSA, and you can go find 100 grand worth of healthcare expenses you paid out of pocket over 20 years. You can potentially take that 100 grand out tax free, right? And say that you're claiming, right, the payment of expenses that happened over time frames. So, um, yeah, that's one account that I think a lot of people sleep on. Another one is for daycare costs, right? There's so many people that are paying, tens of thousands of dollars in daycare costs every single year. And an awesome account is the FSA dependent care account. It's an actual account that you can put money into. It's like a savings account that the your company will hold it for you, almost like an escrow or like a savings account. And then if you submit, hey, I paid $1,000 this month for my child's daycare, they'll give you the $1,000 back out of the savings account, and now it becomes tax deductible, right? So we just saved in taxes this year by paying the same exact expense, but just having it flow through another account, get reimbursed, and then now because of the reimbursement, it becomes tax deductible.
So this is new to me. I've never heard of this. Is this something else though? You could, let's say you start your career, you're 20, you don't have kids, whatever, and then you set up an account, you have kids later in life. Is
It's
it just
got it's
true?
got to be so the FSA is not a carryover account. It doesn't carry forward into the future. It's if you don't use it, you lose it. Right. Same
Got
thing with healthcare costs. Is the FSA, if you put money in an FSA, you have to use it, which is why all these different things like the Aura Ring, right? Or like AG1 or like other healthcare things are like, we're HSA, FSA eligible. Is because a lot of people have FSAs. They need to spend it by the end of the year if they don't use it for medical costs. So they end up buying random medical stuff all the time.
Hmm.
Right. So that's one of the biggest reasons why most of those companies are now promoting HSA or FSA is because like it's already been segmented in the person's mind that I have to use this for healthcare stuff. So if this thing says I could buy it tax free, done. Game over. I'm gonna just spend the money.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right. That's a new topic I had never even heard of, and my kids are grown now, but I was one of those ones spending a lot of money on daycare.
Yep.
So yes. All right. Switching gears just a little bit. Again, this is just me asking you about philosophy. Early career investing strategies. You kind of touched on a little bit, but maybe more direct for people early in their career, just starting, whatever
Yeah. I think
thoughts or
that
they should have.
a book that I love is the Psychology of Money by this guy named Morgan Housel. Um, I'm big on like high overarching approaches and like philosophies that I can get behind and just try to stay consistent with. So I personally think that it's not about what you invest in, it's about the fact that you just are and starting and the fact that you're saving. Right? It's a lot easier to teach someone how to invest if they're already a good saver. it's really hard to teach someone how to become a good saver, though, if they're not already one, right? Because it's a really hard system to build. So I think that the minute you start making money, you should automatically just start segmenting a portion of it into something else and really try to leverage direct deposits. Direct deposits are not utilized nearly as much as they should. Most employers allow you to set up at least like 2 to 4 direct deposits, but everyone has just all of their money just going straight into one account, right? And then they're trying to divvy it up from there. No, just don't even see it from the get. Just set up 2 direct deposits, have one go into a checkings account that if it's there, you have you're allowed, right, to spend it. But
Yeah.
if it's not in there, you are not allowed to spend it. And that's where you can just have really good deferred savings. That's why I honestly believe that people's 401ks are always the largest. It's because like they force you to enroll in it most of the time now, at least at like 3%. And most people just forget and never turn it off.
Yeah.
Right. And then just keeps on building, accumulating, even if their investments are only like moderate at best sometimes. Right. I look at someone's allocation. I'm like, why did you choose this? They're like, I don't know. It's kind of happened. Right. But it's just the compounding
Somebody
effect.
told you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or sometimes no, the employer will sometimes just choose an allocation for them based off their age. It's called the target date fund. Right. It just gets automatically allocated based off their age. But yeah, I would say that getting in a good savings habit, then becoming a better investor after is my recommendation because you need money to invest in the first place. So being a good investor, half the battle is being a good saver first.
You're speaking my language. One, the direct deposit, that is a great idea. It's easy, low bar to get into to saving, investing my money that way. But I'll give you my only 2 investment advice that I have to receive. One was learn to live off your base income. Don't rely on overtime or anything like that, which is a very common mistake, especially for first responders. You start eating that 20, 30, 40, God forbid, 50 hours of overtime just to pay your base normal life. The other one was max out for me, it's TSP or whatever your max your 401k, whatever your retirement is, max it out from day one and never change it and learn to sustain your life based off that. That's about it. To your point, that's kind of how most advice can get that.
Yeah, 100%. The max out your TSP one, I have a hard time with it sometimes actually. I think I might be a bit against the grain on that.
Go.
In the sense that, I think that maxing out to the guaranteed match, which is for a lot of folks, I think is like 5% as first responders, I think. Right. I could be wrong on that, but that's what I've at least like in like military backgrounds. A lot of first responders I've talked to is usually 5%. But
Like if I
um
give, they match 5%.
yes, exactly.
Yeah,
Right. So
right.
like so maxing that out for
Yeah,
sure.
for
But
sure.
like maxing
Yeah.
out to the IRS limit, I don't know about
Oh,
that.
no,
Like
no, that's not what I was referring to. The matching,
oh,
that's
okay.
what I'm actually, thank you for clarifying. That's the maxing meaning what they'll match. So thank you for clarifying.
Yes, because sometimes, I, well, grew up in Long Island, so, like, a lot of, people I knew, they ended up becoming, like, Suffolk County cops and stuff like that, and I'm like, "Dude, you can't make 50 grand, right? Then bust your ass and, do all this crazy stuff and, like, not sleep and then, have half your income just go straight to retirement," right? I'm like, there needs to be a level of balance that,
Yeah.
I think is important. So yeah, I think that that's where modeling comes in and is super helpful. Is the modeling allows you to have context as to what the actions today, the impact it'll have later on. So it gives you a real sense as to, that doesn't look great. I want to put some more, love and attention towards that and therefore save more. But then also it might just be, hey, that looks great, right? And I
Right.
want to turn off that part of my savings and start using the savings towards something else more meaningful that I might be able to do now that I won't be able to appreciate as much when I'm in my 60s.
Valid statements on this. Valid statement. Switching to mid-career or the catch-up process. Any advice for people who are like been in for 5, 10 years and like, shit, I need to start thinking about retirement and I didn't do it when I started. Some
Yeah.
thought.
The catch up, dude, it's just a lifestyle shift. It is really tough, but I think it's just a matter of getting really in tune with your priorities. And if the priority is strong enough to be able to save and make sure you're setting yourself up for the future, then you're going to prioritize it and do it. And if it's not, then, then you're going to continue doing the habits of spending it and using it today. But that's where I think that having somebody to challenge you on it is really helpful. Like I would look at myself as much more of like a behavioral finance guy than like a
Yes.
pure, I don't know, like technical analyst, right? I look at myself as almost like a personal trainer, but just for finance. Like instead of trying to get someone to bench 225, I want them to be able to save 2 grand, right? But benching 225 doesn't start at, just putting on 2 plates and getting under the bar. It starts at the bar, right?
Yeah.
So I start the same exact way. I'm just like, hey, like if you feel like you can't save, that's because you're starting at too large of a number, right? I'm like, if the hesitance is you can't do it, it's because the goal is too large. We just need to lower the goal to start first, right? And then just like a muscle, it's going to build and you're going to get better at it and better at it and better at it, and it's going to keep on increasing. It's the reason why a lot of corporate gigs, they sneakily add in this automatic increase, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll set it at 5 and they go, "Do you want to add the automatic increase?" And they go, "Yeah, sure, whatever." And then, it keeps on creeping up 1% per year. But sometimes they don't even notice it. They're just like, "Oh, I'm paying more in taxes now." And I'm like, "No, you're not." I'm like, "You just keep on increasing your 401k by 1%."
They got you.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Off topic, but I'm not trying to disparage an entire field, but fitness is a strong part of what you do. Medals in the back, and what, why is that important in the world of finance? Just the physical health part. Like, what is that? I just found it unique.
Uh, I don't
I
know.
know that's a personal question, bro. Sorry.
It's a good question. No, one, I just have a hard time sitting still anyways. I'm just like always just, I don't know, my brain's always going. So, my wife and I, we both have ants in our pants, but, um, I think the thing that, once again, my business coach, Nick, he's been instrumental in a lot of the ways that I approach life, on business
Yeah.
side, but also as a person was he actually had me read Goggins' book. Right? And
Oh,
it was
okay.
just about, you know, uh, the idea of callousing the mind and being able to do hard things so that it translates into other things that you do in life. I think it's kind of universal, as if you kind of half-ass certain things, you're gonna probably half-ass other things. And if you're just gonna go at it all in, then you're probably gonna do that with other stuff in your life too. So I've just done it because it makes me feel better. It makes me sharper, and um, I don't know. There's just something about it that I think it's something that you can't replicate.
It's just again, I'm not disparaging an entire profession by any stretch, but when you think of financial planners or like that, a lot of time behind the computer, almost sedentary. And it's something I saw in you. We discussed briefly, but it's almost like I appreciate it a little bit more. You value that fitness aspect. There's another out.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that it's just fun to be around those types of people too. They're a little
Yeah,
crazy. It's a little bit of crazy, just the right
a
amount,
little bit
right? Like
for sure.
when you go meet like another guy at the gym, you're like, "Whoa, this is a screw loose," but I kind of like it, right? Like
Yeah, they're different.
there's something going on there.
They are different. Uh, Kind of switching gears a little bit, but um, is there any advice that you can give to somebody who's like, "Hey, I need to talk to a financial planner." It is scary for a lot of people because they don't know what they're getting into. They don't know who to trust. And to your point, like, all these behind the scene fees. Is there any? It's kind of a hard question. Um, is there any advice you can get someone when they're trying to feel out talking to a financial planner and trusting them with one, not only all their money, but their life after, so their life after work? It's scary.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Oh, again,
Tough for me to answer because I feel like I'm always on the other side of, hey, like, tell me about your advisor, and then I'll tell you all the reasons why you should work with me instead. It's been
you mean
very
somebody who already has an advisor and they're leaving that advisor?
correct. Yeah, so I'm
Oh,
usually only on that side, so it's hard for me to know how else they would trust someone
yeah.
because I'm having them try to figure out whether or not they should trust me more so than the person that they hired. But I think that if
Well,
I was sitting in the client seat, it would be, are they asking you thoughtful questions that just make logical sense, right? To get you to where you want to be and be able to actually help accomplish goals. Are they bringing up a lot of product, or are they bringing up like strategy and approach? Right? Product is, hey, put your money here and invest here for that. But strategy is like, hey, you want to buy a house? Great. Like, give me as much detail as possible. What's the timeline? What's your price point? Have you considered, condos or houses? If you're doing condos, are you accounting for HOA fees? And if you're doing houses, are you accounting for all the repairs that are going to happen every, few years? Right? The HOA fee picks up a lot of that on the condo. So, like, if your roof breaks, usually a lot of times the condo, it's going to get baked into the HOA because then they're going to have to replace the whole roof for all the condos. But then on your individual home, you're going to have to potentially shell out 20 grand.
Yeah, I want to elaborate on that just a little bit. Um, Talking about you and your needs as opposed to pushing product. Can you expound on that just a little bit more?
Yeah. Like if someone's like, um, hey, I think that based off of your wealth demographic and the type of people I've worked with, you're a really good candidate for X or Y, or like you should just do this because this is what all of my other XYZers do.
Okay.
Right? Versus, hey, let's get really specific around what you want to accomplish and then figure out, like, hey, based off of all the strategies that I'm aware of, right, or that I've seen be successful with other folks in similar positions, I want to try to match up, like, really what is going to be best for you. Right. But then also, what's going to give you peace of mind that might not be similar to any other client I've ever met. Right. Like,
Yeah.
early on, a lot of people like told me, "Hey, like if you can rid someone of financial anxiety, that is the biggest win possible." But that's going to be so different to different people. So you need to know like what are their actual fears, right? Like what are the things that are keeping them up at night versus somebody else. Some people have a very high tolerance for the unknown and risk, and other people do not. They like want as much certainty as humanly possible, and they're willing to forego certain things in order to get that, right?
No, that's fair. You know, again, this is being talked to you, and I thought that you have the ability to be um, kind of that peace of mind. And also, I like when you're just a kind of a straight shooter, and you're like, yeah, this is great, or this is bad, or whatever it is. You're not trying to be all things, to all questions. Yeah, yeah, we don't do that, or we can help them find that, but that's not different thing. But yeah, I guess I appreciate.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's just coming from honest, just trying to be honest, right? Is like if I
Yeah,
can
yeah,
help, I'll be straight up around it. If I don't know something or if it's not my expertise, I'm just not gonna give advice on it or say I am. But
right.
I've tried my best to build a network of people that I could refer to otherwise that I really respect that what they do and the field that they're in. Um, it's hard to I don't know, I think it's a hard question because there's the technical aspect of it, of knowing your stuff, but then there's also just like, is this person actually gonna care about you, right? And I think that's something that, is almost like finding a wife or a husband is just it's hard to know someone's intentions. So, like, you just have to really feel it out and just you kinda when you know, you know.
You know what? That's a valid statement because I would assume and imagine. Correct me if I'm wrong, but when you start working with a financial planner, wealth manager, that's not, you're not dating. It's not, a year or less. It's me 30 years. I don't know what the term limit is, but it's long term, maybe for life. Oh, right? Am I
Yeah.
am I wrong in that? I don't know.
I mean, I've been doing this for about a decade now, and there've definitely been some breakups, but a lot less than ones that have been with me since the start, right? But the hard part is sometimes you kind of grow out of relationships, like, the best friend that you had in elementary school, that you guys are super tight, but then just the way that you guys approach life just went a little bit different, and that just kind of happens sometimes. But um, yeah, I think that it is really one of those things. If I just think about, hey, if I have the opportunity to mutually decide to work with someone and they want to work with me, I just want to do it with people that I enjoy being around and that we can have fun, but also be really productive.
Well said. I got to ask this question because I could feel buddies of mine. I'm in that age bracket where some of my buddies are retired or retiring, so I would be remiss for advice on pre-retirement planning, sequencing for those getting to that good. So they hit the early career, the mid career. Now we're like, you're at the end. Thoughts and strategies
I think
that you
one
would
thing
advise.
is like really just try to build out a schedule of like what retirement's actually going to look like. If you just have an entire wide open calendar every single day, I found that creates a lot of stress for people. They're like, dude, for most of my life, I've ran on a pretty rigid, like, I need to be here at this time for this amount of time doing this. Now it's just, hey, like, I've only been on vacation for the longest amount, like 2 weeks. After that, I don't know what I would do. Right. So I
Start
think
feeling stuck.
100%. Right. And I think that, work at a lot of times is kind of someone's purpose because they need to do it for a paycheck or they genuinely love the career, which is ideal. But then I think it's hard for people to get to the other side and then figure out what the purpose is after that, right? Like what is still going to get them out of the morning on Monday, jazzed about doing something, but it doesn't have to be for money at all, right? It's just a freedom I think a lot of people haven't had, so they haven't spent a ton of time thinking about it yet.
Yeah, and again, it is a personal decision. I have friends of mine that are, to your point, very structured, and they're used to working 8, 9, 10, 12 hours, depending.
Yeah.
Uh, Shout out to one of my buddies recently retired, LP, but, he just is like, "I wanna buy a Sprinter van and a bathing suit and a tank top, and I'm just gonna chase the waves," and very, very base level lifestyle. I was like, "I think you'll be just fine, though."
Dude, if he can do that too, though, that's awesome. Honestly,
Yeah,
I'm a little bit more like that too. Like if I just had like an open schedule, I would just find a bunch of hobbies that I would want to start digging into and just learning new stuff. But there are a
yeah.
lot of folks that they relied on the routine that it's hard to figure out what else it is. So I think that's one piece of it. The other part of it's definitely doing the right amount of cash reserving. So the emergency fund changes a lot when you're in retirement. You really do have to start preparing for down markets in a way that you've never had to do before. We like to call it the war chest, right? Where like
Okay.
you're literally going to have to go to war with a really bad market and it's going to be very daunting mentally of like seeing a portion of your account potentially go down by quite a bit, but you have this war chest to draw from and be able to rely on so that you can weather that storm knowing that to get better returns, you have to go through some turbulence. You have to go through volatility. There is no, hey, I get awesome returns and there's always just a steady upwards movement, right? That just doesn't exist, right? So I think it was this guy named Nick Murray. He goes, the fee that we pay as investors is volatility. That is the fee that we have to pay in stomach to get better returns, right? Without it, it's not accomplishable. So I think cash reserving is big for retirees and people that are approaching it. Um, and then, yeah, once again, like really defining the lifestyle is really defining like what kind of lifestyle do you want to live and how much is it truly going to cost. And then, bucketing your goals into different time frames. That's something
Okay.
that we do a lot with folks is, um, we call it like go go, slow go, and no go years. So like the go
Mhm.
go phase is probably going to be for first
Yeah,
responders in
for
like their late 40s to maybe early 60s, right? And then the slow go might be 60s to 70s, maybe even 80s for some folks, and then 80 on is
Mhm.
usually no go, right? No go is you're not traveling to people anymore; they're traveling to you,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
Fair enough. Yep.
So those time frames are going to have distinctly different spend rates for a lot of people. Right, so being able to define that too, I think is helpful.
Ah, dude, you know what? Thank you, because I remember you talking to us about it, and I had never thought about it. I also remember you like, "If you had $1,000,000, would you be able to spend it?" And we were both like, "Yes," immediately. We could find things to do, meaning like hobbies, trips, travel. But you said that a lot of people are like, "I have no idea what I would do with it 'cause I don't know where I have no idea what I would do." Um, how to your point, how you plan on spending your time. So I like that. No, go, slow go, or
No
no,
go. Yep. Go
no go.
go, slow go, no go. Yeah. No, I legitimately had clients in here the other day where I was like, if I gave you an extra 5 grand a month, like what would you do with it? And they're just like,
Yeah.
what do you mean? I'm like, I'd be like, genuinely, if it just gave you like it just magically had it show up in your checking account, like what would you do with it? Like, I don't know. I don't think I'd do anything. And like one half of me is like, man, this person must be just so satisfied with their life. And then the other part of me is like, man, this person might be so uh what is the word? It's almost just like they've never given themselves the freedom to like think about the things that are just really fun and that they would love to do, but it feels irresponsible to do so.
Yeah.
And it's almost like being playful in a weird way of like, can I get this person to think like a kid again and think about all the fun stuff that they'd want to do? Because they've kind of earned that right. Actually, you want a great analogy that my barber came up with because he was trying to explain the concept of retirement spending to his wife. He's like, imagine that your entire life, right, from like 20 to 60, you ate like an absolute saint. They're really into fitness. My barber is jacked as hell. He's the man. Anybody hit up Dan at Tommy Ray's in West Hartford. He's the boy. But he
Shout out.
was trying to explain it to his wife, and he was like, imagine that um, you once again ate like a saint, you exercised every single day, you did everything right. And then at 60, someone came and told you that for the rest of your life, if you really wanted to, and you didn't feel like crap and it didn't slow you down, you could eat fast food, Krispy Kremes, you could eat everything you've ever wanted to indulge in, and all the work that you did from your 20s to 60 cannot be undone. Like you've done so much good groundwork and foundation setting that all of the crazy, bad, terrible things that you do here cannot negatively impact you to a point where it would be detriment. Right? And
Yes.
that's kind of the person that got really healthy investment accounts. Unless they got lucky, which that does happen from time to time. But for most people, it was just grinding it out and doing the right thing and deferring gratification for decades. And unwinding that and teaching someone out of it is actually quite hard sometimes.
Yeah, and also you touching on stuff, especially in the first responder space, it is a very locked in mentality. There's a lot of people I know, and I've been for a while. The job is their life. That is their identity. And so when you remove that, or even sometimes even the thought of it, you're kind of what you talk about, say, hey, think past retirement. What does that look like? It's the black wood. What do you mean? This is what I do. This is who I am. To me, it's like such a depth. If I did all this work, big point for all the time. You have time to spend with your kids or whatever it is you want to do. You've never even given it a thought once. in a while. It's
Yeah,
hard to break through.
it
It's
is.
hard to break through.
I try to challenge myself too. I'm just like, if I wasn't doing this, what would I do? And I'm like, damn, I understand what struggle they go through because I've been so dedicated to this and so mono focused on it for quite a while. It is become
Yeah.
a pretty large part of my identity. And then I go, I don't know. I think that I'm going to think about it when I feel like I've just earned the right to, and I've, have that opportunity. And I'm like, well, I might not come around to it either. So, I am very much so getting a financial planner of my own to work with me up here once I'm ready to distribute as well. 100%,
Ooh,
dude. 1,000%, bro. I'm
financial planner for a financial planner.
so I sort of pseudo already have one. I run a lot of the things that I would want to do with my own money by my business coach to be able to get perspective as to the way that he would approach it. And he gives some helpful perspective on, being able to enjoy a little bit more today, knowing that I've set myself up decently well.
Yeah.
And just to not be so do the right thing because we're training other people to do so. So sometimes it could be, um, you can be a little bit hard on yourself and, feel like you should be practicing every single little thing that you preach.
It's almost like a psychiatrist with a
That's
psychiatrist. You
exactly it.
spend so much time doing this, it's like I need an outside perspective for my own shit.
Yeah, I know the doctors are the worst patients, right? So like
Oh, sure.
they really should go get a really good doctor. It's just finding someone that you can really get behind and like, everything that's come out of Nick's mouth for the most part I've kind of followed. So he's been helpful in that.
I have 2 more questions. Quick.
Yeah.
Uh, common investing myths.
Timing the market is definitely one of
Oh,
them.
that's
100%.
good. I didn't even think of that one yet. 100%.
Yeah, I think that once again, like what are you investing for? Right? Because if you're trying to time the market and buy the dip and stuff like that, right? Like buying at a discount is definitely good, but waiting to buy the discount is not good. Right? Like if you happen to have funds when it's down, absolutely buy. But if you're gonna keep like 100 grand in dry powder or something and wait to then buy, you're missing out on the boat, dude. Because the market's up 80% of the time, right? So like waiting for that 20 just doesn't make mathematical sense. So the really good exercise to do is, actually we could do it with you. Right now, the S&P 500, right, is trading at probably around $7,000. I sort of know the year you were born. I think it was like 1983.
Great.
Okay. So I
You're the pig.
so was I. I kind of have a good idea as to what the S&P is trading at. So if it's trading at 7,000 today, what do you think it was trading at when you were born?
I have no idea. I think we did talk about this, but I don't remember off the top of my head. I would say not 7,000, a lot less.
Yeah, but a lot of people typically will say like, I don't know, maybe like 3,000, 2,000, right? Maybe sometimes even 1,000. For 1980s, I think it's literally like, in like the two to 300s, maybe 400s, right?
I would have said 1,000. So I was way off. Yeah, you're right.
Which is it's 50% less, right? Than
Yeah.
the number is 50% less than what you initially anticipated. So like at that point, who cares if you're buying at like 450 versus 500, which that as a percentage perspective is massive, right? In a given year. But
Yeah.
if we're investing for the long term, who cares? Right. And that's why, like, for people that are chasing it, it's usually because of the fact that they're not actually investing for the long term. They're gambling and trying to make something quick. Right.
Yeah.
And, it's the same exact thing as being able to go to the roulette table and pick the right number. Right. There's hundreds of thousands of stocks. Right. And you have how many numbers on a roulette table? I don't even know. Right.
I don't even know it. Yeah.
40?
99, I think. I think it's 00. I don't know what it goes to.
I have no
There's a
idea.
lot.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
So that's one big thing is time in the market. What would be another common investing mistake?
Or myth. Just, people think they're doing something the right way, but it's not.
Uh, that cash is, like large amounts of cash are safe. Because over time that will bite you in the butt because you just lost out on a lot of free money that you could have had if you just set it and forget it. I think setting it, forgetting it is a lot better of a strategy than what most people anticipate. There are, by the way, tons of really great robo advisor platforms, right? Like, I don't know if it's going to be a bad plug or not, but like, I feel like platforms like Wealthfront are solid, right? Like, they're, a good systematic saving strategy that have decently well diversified portfolios and they're pretty low cost. Um, and at that point, it's just a matter of being a good, disciplined person to actually use the tool and be able to put enough money into it, right? Like financial planning is not for everyone, the same way that personal training is not for everyone. Some people are just really disciplined and can do it on their own, and that's perfectly fine until it gets harder, right? Until they have something really niche, which is then like if you want to become a professional athlete, you're not doing it by yourself, right? There's different levels to this, right? So I think that that's really distribution planning. A lot of people have no problem building wealth and getting there. It's then actually starting to use it and distribute it safely that becomes way more difficult, right? There's a good amount of people, right, that are, disciplined, good. They're really frugal, honestly. They're probably too frugal, right? There's really like two sets of clients that I have a lot of fun working with. There's like the people that are like way overly frugal, and I like get to teach them how to just let it rip and like have fun. Like I had a client that I was able to say, "Hey, you can spend 100 grand a year every single year for the rest of your life and earn like a 3% rate of return and you'll never run out." And they're like, "There's no way." And I'm like, "There is." And I just showed them like model after iteration of iteration of just like showing them like playing out different markets and inflation rates, stuff like that. And they're like, "Holy crap." And it took them like 3 years to really internalize it. But then they started to take their families on trips and stuff like that, and it was so cool. Every year we send them about like 100 grand, and they just book crazy trips. Like one of them was an Alaskan cruise for their entire family. Another one's now a European trip for their oldest grandson, who's now turning 18. They're taking him to Europe, right? So like we get to really get creative around the most meaningful way to use it. Um, so that's one subset is that, and then the other subset is people that we need to be the disciplined personal trainer to make sure that they're practicing the right things and really getting in the work and being able to see the results really gratifying, knowing that they might have not done it otherwise.
I'm not trying to lie to you. I said 2 questions, but I have 2 follow-ups to that question. Just drop 2 things. I never heard of a robo-advisor.
Oh,
These are like apps or something? I've never even heard of that.
yeah, there's a lot of trading that gets done algorithmically at this point. Like it's like, hey, like you should be X amount in US large, X amount in US mid, X amount in US small. Another percentage in things like international developed, international emerging, real estate, etc. So if you just put in a certain amount of money and, say, hey, I want this to be a 70-30, 80-20, 90-10, the segments of the market, like the actual parts of the market don't change, it's the percentages of them do. Right. So then they'll just tilt one way or another. And as long as you save enough money into them and use the accounts the right way, it can be a really great, low cost, effective way of being able to invest on your own. Because people that want to do it on their own, they also want to sometimes have the control, but then they end up getting stuck on like which investment to choose. And then they end up only choosing like
Yeah.
one or two, which is like VTI, which is like a total stock index, or like, the S&P 500. I personally don't love that idea because it just isn't as diversified. But I like the approach of just using low cost ETFs. It's just a matter of, once again, doing it with enough money, consistently enough to be able to get to where you need to be. And then also once you
Good
get to
stuff.
when you get to the goal, being able to hit the sell button. Putting money
Yeah.
in is a lot different than
That's smart.
actually. Yeah, it's taking money out's way tougher for a lot of folks. It's really funny to see. It's like they've had a one-way relationship with the account for so long where
Yeah,
they've only put
it's
money in.
Yeah. Well, it kinda opposite to crypto. Sorry, this is a segue. I have one more follow-up question, but,
Yeah.
crypto is like, "Oh, if I would've kept my crypto when I first bought it, I'd be a billionaire." I'm like, "Would you though? Or would you have sold it when you made 100 grand? 1,000,000? Like, at what point 100,000,000? Like, are you really gonna leave it in there till it hits 1,000,000,000?" Anyway, whatever. It's that mindset. So it's kinda funny that you talk about. But
For
to your
sure.
point, retirement stuff, everyone's used to just putting it away, they never wanna take it, and so that initial withdrawal, you kinda feel it, it puts you in your feels a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah.
One other thing you said that I meant to touch on, so apologies for bringing it up so late in the podcast, but I loved the way you talk about it. It's like, you were like, "I want you to spend your money, things you want to do, why you saved it, why you invested it, you know, that you just wanna live the same way you're living until you die and give it to somebody else," which maybe they do. Again, I'm not speaking for everybody, but you're like, "No, I would love for you to live out your life, and on the day you die, there'll be 0 left, and you've accounted for everything else." So, again, I'm summarizing a bunch of conversations we've had. But can you expand on that process for you, your point? So, go spend it. Go take the vacations. Go do them. That's it.
Yeah, I think it was,
Yeah.
I was just about to leave for my honeymoon and I got a note from a client that they had just gotten laid off. Mind you, this client was 62, 63, and she wasn't planning on retiring until 65. But I built out multiple iterations that she had enough to retire that summer if she wanted to anyways. So it was
Ah,
kind of wild that it forced her hand, except she got a pretty large severance package that paid her out for an entire year, which is sweet. So it got her even closer to the end goal of retiring at 65, but she technically got to retire early, but still full pay. Right. So she
yeah.
didn't have to withdraw anything, which is sweet. But long story short is that she was forced into retirement. So then her husband ended up retiring as well. But they probably wouldn't have forcibly retired if, um, she didn't get laid off. And then literally a year later, the husband ended up getting cancer. And I was just like, this is a scenario where thankfully he had at least a year of retirement because she got laid off. Right, so they decided to retire together, but I just think about it, if they had the funds and resources to retire, but they decided not to because they, for some reason, wanted to go to 65 instead, then, he wouldn't have had an extra year of being able to do things he wanted to do, and now it just, you know, I think about that with a lot of people of like, "Hey, if I can educate them that they could use their money now and get ahead of it and, not defer it, maybe that's my biggest value add instead of them just having more money, but they don't get to actually use it." So it's a really delicate balance. I'll be honest. It's really hard to determine like who the right clientele to say that to and, do that with is. But, you kind of pick and choose because you don't want to say that to the wrong person, by the way. Right. You don't want to
No,
tell
right.
them
You don't
like,
want
yeah,
to.
like you can let this
Yeah.
rip and then you're just like, uh-oh, like what did I just do? Right. And
Whoops.
then yeah, and then it goes off the rails. So I'm very hesitant when I talk about that topic.
You don't want to pull a Johnny Depp where he's drinking $100,000 bottles of wine and buying islands.
That is
Got
100% correct.
that kind of money.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Last question. Last question. Wealth building. So, gritty. Somebody who's never thought about it. These are some things you're doing.
Yeah, I think as much as possible, try to max out tax-free accounts, right, as early as humanly possible. If you're paying tax on it today, just to look at it as an entry fee and then just be so thankful that when you start taking it out, it's not going to owe anything to Uncle Sam, state, whatever the case may be. Right. To rip off the band-aid, get it done. There's going to be a math component to it, but there's a massive emotional component to it. No one remembers their tax rate back in their 30s, but everyone feels the taxes when they take it out later. That's just at least my opinion from observations. Like it's funny when CPAs are like, dude, this guy took out 100 grand out of his Roth and he paid nothing in taxes. And I'm like, yes, that is exactly it. He's like, you never see it anymore. Right. Because the Roth is just such a new account relative to the pre-tax accounts. And most people just don't have a lot of wealth built in it. So it's just crazy to see someone just take out 100 grand and literally owe nothing. It's like their tax return, their tax out is zero. It's just so crazy. Right.
That
So
would.
yeah, I would a lot of people, and they would just be like, you know what, I know I paid tax on this earlier, but I can't even remember how much it was, and I don't even care now because this is the byproduct, right? So that's one thing is I think try to max out. So that's going to be things like your Roth, your HSA. It's going to be things like honestly, those are the two biggest things for folks. Every retirement account has the option. So for first responders, it's your TSP, right? There's a Roth option in the TSP, and same thing with the 457. The 457 is a really cool account because you can actually touch it without penalty before the normal retirement age, which is super important for those early retirees, right? With the 403B and the 401k, a lot of times those are still going to have a penalty of accessing it early. The 457 doesn't. It's a specific one for first responders and folks that are in like the government slash service space, right? 457.
Taking note.
Yeah, so definitely max those out or try to put a good amount into there. And then once again, like set up really good direct deposits, right? Start at yeah, just have it go into a high yield savings account. Once you've hit a certain threshold there, like set rules of thumb for yourself. So, if the rule of thumb is, hey, once this account gets to 10, I'm immediately going to start another automatic withdrawal from that into an investment account. So it's still money you never see. It's money that you're not used to ever having, just like you're not used to having the taxes withdrawn from your paycheck or the amount going to your pension because the state's forcing you to, or the money that's going into your 401k. It's just money that's out of sight, out of mind, and allows you to build wealth passively. And then as you look at it periodically, it's just going to grow and compound in a way that it's kind of hard to comprehend, honestly.
So, yeah. Again, these are all. I'm 42, and I'm glad I'm learning it now. I'm not quite retirement age yet, but son of a bitch, I was back in my 20s when I started.
Hindsight,
So it's
man.
just easy. Yeah. Well, that's why I'm here. We're gonna push. Brandon, anything you want to leave with before we shut it down?
No, man, I appreciate you. I appreciate the opportunity. I hope this conversation helps some people. And yeah, I just love the message that you're putting out there.
Thanks, brother. Don't go anywhere. I appreciate you.
Yeah, take care.